All right, I'd like to open the public session here at the July 19th regular meeting of the Lake Forest City Council. So, we have a council member who is here, but he'll be coming shortly, I'm sure. So, I guess we're going to start with the invocation. Pastor David Arnold. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a great freedom in this country, and particularly in this city, to pray. And I consider that a privilege and thank you for the opportunity tonight. Please join me. Father God, we humbly come before you to ask for your wisdom and blessing on the leadership of our community. The Apostle Paul instructed us in 1 Timothy to pray for our leaders who serve under your authority. Tonight I lift up the Lake Forest City Council and staff and thank you for each of them and for their sacrifices and service to our community. Please bless Mayor Andrew Hamilton, Mayor Pro Tem Scott Voights, Council Member Dr. Jim Gardner, Council Member Adam Nick, Council Member Dwight Robinson. Give them wisdom, discernment, understanding, and unity in making decisions that are pleasing to you. Protect every member of the City Council and city staff from harm. Bless and protect their families, their health, and their finances. Strengthen their endurance and stamina in their leadership of our city. Enable them to carry out their duties with humility towards you and towards others. Lord, I especially lift up the members of law enforcement, that they be protected from forces that would be against them. The Bible says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God." Please give these men and women double portion of blessing for their unselfish service. Protect them. And Lord, continue to bless the citizens and city of Lake Forest. In the powerful name of Jesus Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll pledge allegiance to our flag. And I think we might have some gentlemen in the audience. Maybe they can come forward. Do I see Boy Scouts that might help us pledge allegiance to the flag? Would you guys do that for us?
Yes, as they're getting prepared to come, let us remember that we live in the most blessed, most freest nation in the face of this earth, and that this symbol of freedom is a beacon of hope for the rest of the world, and that our law enforcement officers take a stand to keep us safe, and that to date, 31, with the loss of the Kansas City police officer today, 31 of our law enforcement officers have been killed this year. And so let us remember them in our prayers. As we lay our heads down, they're out there keeping us safe. So, boys, if you would lead us, what troop are you guys with?
604.
604.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, boys.
Yes, thank you. And you, do you mind coming up and telling us your names before you sit down, so we can thank you properly here?
I'm Ethan. My two brothers. I'm Jonas. Garrett, Jonas, and Ethan.
Garrett, Jonas, and Ethan. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Which leads us to our closed session report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council has met in closed session to review the City Manager's performance and outline parameters for his compensation. One component of the City Council's discussion was a bonus package including a one-time cash bonus and one-time deferred contribution, which the City Manager has accepted and which has been implemented through administrative instructions, which are a matter of public record. That is the entire report for tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that I voted against the bonus.
All right. that leads us to public comments. At this time, any member of the public can speak before the City Council on an agenda item that is not on the agenda. No action can be taken on that item. And if you fill out one of the request to speak forms, once you get up and your name is called, you'll have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. You'll see a yellow light turn on in 1 minute, and after that minute is expired, your time is up, and you'll hear a red light. You'll see a red light and hear a buzzer. So, do we have any requests to speak?
Jane Hartley, followed by Evelyn Joyner.
Welcome.
Thank you. Before I start, I would like to thank Mr. Valentine and all of our officers for their service. It's greatly appreciated. I'm here about Village Pond Park and also our elementary school and every place else these geese are. They've taken over. I think you're aware of it. It's unsanitary. They have our children playing on these fields. I won't go into our park. I won't set foot in it. That's how horrible it has become. Most of those of us who boarded the property and many other people purchased their property because of that park. Our home values are plummeting. I'm sure of it. I can't prove it, but they have to be. Who wants to buy next to that park? Nobody. It's really horrible. And I'm here tonight with my neighbor Evelyn to talk about it, but I'm ready to organize my neighborhood. My mother is a gardener. She gardens out there by the fence. Everybody who walks by the house stops to ask her, do you know anything about when they're going to do this? Do you know anything? How come it hasn't started yet? When is it starting? She doesn't have any answers because we haven't had communication, which is a bit frustrating for us. But if I don't hear some news soon, and I'm a public school teacher, I'm off right now, and I'm also a union rep. I know a little bit about organizing people. I'm ready to go. So please, please, please fix this problem. I understand that there's some water versus land issues between the HOA and the City Council, and I don't care how that gets resolved. I really don't, as long as it gets resolved. Thank you.
Evelyn Joyner, followed by Pam Estes.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, I'm Evelyn
Welcome.
Joyner. I'm a neighbor of Ms. Hartley. Their property backs up to the duck pond. Mine is on the corner. I'm on the corner lot with the association park behind my house. And so I see these people walk back to the duck pond. They bring bags of bread, which isn't a good diet for geese. Consequently, they are the problem with the duck pond, all their fetus and whatnot. And it's kind of stupid to see me out in the middle of Elron chasing geese back into the park. We need to really do something about them, and I think it's the feeding of them that's wrong. And there are signs there. People walk right by the sign saying that it's illegal to feed them. And they walk right past the sign over to the duck pond and they feed them. I watched a man who must have had a delicatessen or something, but he had a red pickup truck and he'd park out on Elrond and walk over to the duck pond. And just before it, the geese would come out, from the park area into the little our area. And he had stale, rotten coffee cake and rolls of all kinds. And why you think they're slopping pigs instead of geese? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. There's signs. People don't read them. There's signs way up high. People don't see those. They don't look up. They're looking down because they're afraid of stepping on some junk. Okay, that's all I have to say. Right now, the geese are really coming down Elron into Meadowbrook Circle, and you wouldn't want them in your yard. They're really messy. Thank you. I wish something could be done. And I back up her entirely. I'm just glad I don't face the duck pond, because it's not very pretty. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Pam Estes, followed by Greg DeLeon.
Welcome.
Hello, I'm Pam Estes. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Laguna Beach, and we serve kids from Lake Forest. I just wanted to give you a quick update. You know, as you're probably aware, we just keep coming up against trying to find a permanent location for our program. I mean, there's definitely a dire need, so just to put the word out there. Right now, what we're doing, because of that obstacle, we're actually picking kids up at Olivewood Elementary, picking 50 kids up every Monday through Wednesday, bringing them to our main branch in Laguna Canyon next to Sawdust Festival, and then bringing them back to Olivewood at the end of the day. We've got, like I said, 50 kids that fills the bus for that program, and then on top of that, on Thursdays and Fridays, we're getting about 15 to 20 kids who are getting there on their own. So I just wanted to give you all an update, and thank you for the community for supporting this program for these kids. And I brought you some pictures that you are welcome to have and keep. And so thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Greg DeLeon, followed by Randy Johnson.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Greg DeLeon. I'm a new staffer for Congresswoman Mimi Walters. I want to take the time to introduce myself, let you guys know if you guys need anything. Feel free to contact our office and look for me. I should be here at your future council meetings, and I really look forward to working with the city of Lake Forest. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Randy Johnson.
Welcome.
Well, good evening. I can say good evening now. It's afternoon. So I was here. I want to let the audience know I was here earlier today, and I commented on closed session item number 3 that has to do with this lawsuit between the HOA and the City of Lake Forest and the OCTA and the Southern California Regional Rail Authority. And for this reason, the city attorney has basically put a gag order on the council. They are not allowed to talk about the Village Pond Park whatsoever, according to what I've heard. And so I commend these two beautiful ladies for coming here tonight and becoming civically involved and complaining. They live on the pond, complaining about the disrepair of the pond, all the goose feces, you know, the unsanitary conditions, the dead grass, dead trees, nothing's being done about it, and this litigation could go on forever. It's absolutely reprehensible that this council doesn't do anything about this and goes along with the city attorney and keeps your lips sealed. This is a public health issue. Last meeting I submitted a bunch of pictures to you. They're online. From the July 5th meeting, you can look at the pictures, all the goose feces. You can see it's a public safety matter. So all of you people, if you're going to do your job, then get involved. Okay, next thing here on the Orange County Animal Care. Orange County Animal Care, okay, Deborah Rose at the last meeting talked with Jennifer Hawkins and said the reason they're using this outdated data for the dog license compliance is because they use the data from January 1st, 2015, a full year in advance of when the actual licenses were calculated into the formula. And so there's a 2.4% inflated dog license compliance on this. I complained to you last meeting about this, and you know it, okay? I want to ask Deborah Rose why she didn't question this. First of all, Orange County Animal Care did not post their 2015 dog license compliance data to their website in sometime between June 21st and June 30th of 2016. They had access to the latest data. They didn't use it. It's in the report here. They did not use it. Okay? Why not? Why wasn't that question asked to Jennifer Hawkins? Okay? Number two, the California Department of Finance provides 2 population estimates every year. One estimate is for mid-year on July 1st of each year, and that's released in December. Why wasn't that data at least used? And she said, oh, it's because the report was produced on February 24th, 2015. Well, you could have used that data, but you didn't. Read the report.
Thank you for your comments.
There are no further requests.
Mr. Mayor, I have some comments.
Well, I was just going to mention that we do have that item, like the resident mentioned, Randy Johnson. It's entitled Conference with Legal Counsel, Existing Litigation. Case name was Lake Forest Community Association versus the City of Lake Forest. There's a case number, and because of that item being in closed session, we can't discuss it anymore.
I had a couple of comments for the people who spoke. At the mayor's request, we can't respond to you after you speak. We have to wait till it's over, and then address all of you. And thank you for coming here and giving us your opinions. That's the whole reason of having a city council and having a council meeting. Anyhow, for Greg DeLeon, Mimi Walters, staff person, yeah, you could do me a personal favor and get her signs down. The election's long over and her signs are still all over the city, and I don't appreciate it. So if you could get on that tomorrow, that would be very much appreciated.
I just want you to know he left
He
already.
left, yeah.
He left
so,
already.
And that gives you some idea of the dedication of your representatives. All right, I guess I'll have to send that to him in an email. And thank you for the commenters on Village Pond Park. I've been instructed that I'm subject to criminal prosecution if I discuss the litigation in the Village Pond Park controversy, so I certainly don't want to be criminally prosecuted. So until I hear otherwise, I need to watch what I say about Village Pond Park. I don't think I'm in danger in telling you that, but I certainly don't want to go much beyond that. And those of you who've been here know that I've been very vocal about the city doing something about that. And apparently I can no longer be very vocal. I would ask the city managers, though, in response to Ms. Joyner's comments about all the wanton feeding of the animals. What is the latest count? How many fines have we given out in the year and since the ordinance has been in effect? The last count I had was 3, and I'm just checking to see if we have given out any more.
Mr. Members of the Council, it's not changed since 3. We've not issued additional citations. However, the staff does continue to go out, and they do educate residents. I'd have to defer to Mr. Wasserman if he has any current statistics about what we're seeing and in terms of the number of people who are educated. Returners, obviously, we're not there all the time. But can you add something with respect to the other issues?
I don't have detailed statistics at this time, but we do continue to go out there. Staff goes out on a regular basis, and they hand out the cards to people that will accept them to educate people.
We'll put something in the update this week to give you an idea of what the educational effort continues to do. But the quick answer to the other is there's no other citations that have been issued. Our code enforcement staff does go by regularly, but there's no issue of citation further than what was previously done.
She sees a lot of people. You know, I have to tell you, I go by that park about once a day, sometimes twice a day. I don't always see people feeding, but probably half the time I see people feeding, maybe 40% of the time. It's not all the time, but it is. It's not hard to find them. And is Pam here, Estes? She went too? Okay. And this, I just want to point out, and I know you like to do it this way, but this is one of the reasons I don't like doing it this way.
It's actually a policy we adopted unanimously that's how we came to that. So
I must have been asleep that night. I apologize. But that's the danger when we do it this way, because I know some people do that and they have other things to go to, and so I had some comments for her too, but she's not here. So once again, thank you so much for being here and to giving us your opinion.
yeah, and just to echo on that too, we do take all the public comments very seriously, and we definitely hear each and every one of you. So along that note,
may I?
we have had some interruptions while some speakers are talking, and this is your official warning. We have, Mr. Johnson, we have unanimously adopted rules of decorum, which are found in council policies and the Lake Forest Municipal Code. These rules allow for applause, but prohibit any form of interruption. Again, we unanimously voted on this item at the first meeting in March 2016. So if there are further interruptions, I may call for a recess. So let's continue on.
May I?
That's some items.
Thank you. Thank you. I need to be very careful what I say. So I'm looking in the eye, asking you to not only listen to what I say, understand what I am not saying. It is more important for you to understand what I am not saying than what I am saying. That said, to make sure that I walk the fine line and not subject myself to criminal penalties, I will read a 3-line statement that's been prepared by an attorney. This is as to Village Pond Park. Because the Village Pond Park issues are subject to closed session privilege, a council member cannot discuss the issues in open session unless a majority of the city council participating in the matter votes to waive that privilege. Therefore, unless 3 of the 4 council members in closed session agree to discuss it on the dais, I cannot discuss it without violating state law. That's the end of the paragraph. So, that is what it said. I'm sure each of you is competent enough to realize what it did not say. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll go to the consent calendar. Warrant register item number 4. Which I'll entertain motions.
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, let's cast our votes.
That motion carries unanimously with Mayor Pro Tem Voigt absent.
And that leads us to the consent calendar, items number 5 to 8.
I'll move items 5 to 8.
I'll second that.
All right, if you can cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously with Mayor Pro Tem Voigt absent.
Which leads us to agenda item number 9. So,
Agenda Item 9, revisions to fee resolution for sports field gymnasium user groups and community services programs, submitted by Director of Community Services.
and with that, I will open the public hearing, and we will receive the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to defer to Mr. Wasserman for his report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Dunnick. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as the city has built a beautiful new sports park and recreation center, one of the new facilities that we have to offer to the community is a gymnasium. That's something that we didn't have before. This is obviously new. And as we have some new programs to offer out of the gymnasium, and there's some expenses associated with offering these programs, there are also expenses associated with operating the gymnasium and the recreation center and making them available for public use. It's appropriate that the City Council consider enacting user fees to partially offset some of the operational expenses. Two programs specifically are going to be offered out of the gymnasium by the Community Services Department. One is an open gym program, and that's just a program where participants drop in and they can participate and pick up basketball or volleyball games. And the second program is adult sports, and that specifically refers to adult basketball and volleyball. And this is not something we've offered before, but this is going to be actually city leagues that city staff is going to run. The third set of fees that we're bringing to you this evening pertains to meeting room rentals. And so we have some new meeting rooms at the Sports Park and Recreation Center for rent. And one of the things you'll see in this evening's report, we have an existing policy, meeting room rental policy, that only allows nonprofit organizations to rent meeting rooms for an hourly fee. One of the things we've brought to you this evening is a revised meeting room policy. I believe it's attachment 3. It's been revised to allow local businesses to rent meeting rooms. And one of the reasons is that the Community Services Department has received several inquiries over the last year or so from local businesses wishing to rent the meeting rooms to conduct business meetings, but we haven't been able to allow that because it's not permitted by the current policy. So there are fees this evening related to the open gym program and adult basketball and volleyball program and meeting room rentals. All of these have expenses associated with them, expenses associated with making these facilities available to the public, and also with offering some of the services and programs that we're talking about. The Parks and Recreation Commission considered the fees and had really good discussions at their meetings of July 16th, 2015, and again on April 21st, 2016. I'd like to briefly summarize some of the fees that they're recommending. I'll just go through the three programs briefly. For the Open Gym program, the Community Services Parks and Recreation Commission is recommending a daily fee and also annual fees for Open Gym. They're recommending daily fees $2 for residents and then $5 for non-residents, and then annual passes of $25 for residents and $100 for non-residents. And something about which the Commission felt strongly was that they talked about commercial residents in the city of Lake Forest, or people that may not live here but that might work in the city of Lake Forest, and this was a segment of the population that we believe is using the open gym at this time that they'd really like to serve. So their recommendation was to consider allowing the commercial residents to pay the same fee as residents. Moving on to adult sports, very simple fees. The Commission is recommending team fees of $300 per team for basketball, $200 per team for volleyball. And for the meeting room rental fees, the Commission is proposing hourly rental fees for local businesses, $60 an hour for the small meeting room at the sports park, $120 an hour for the large meeting room at the sports park, and then $60 an hour for the large community room at City Hall. That's essentially where we're sitting at this moment. For nonprofit organizations, the recommended fee is $12 per hour for the small meeting room at the sports park, $24 an hour for the large meeting room at the sports park, and then $12 an hour fee for the community room at City Hall. I should mention a little bit more about the meeting rooms. So the two new meeting rooms at the sports park, they're both about 900 square feet. If you remove the divider, you can make one large room that's about 1,800 square feet. That has a kitchen. That would become part of the rentals if the local business rents a large meeting room. So that was a brief summary of some of the fees that were recommended by the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'd like to, before I turn it over for your discussion and your questions, talk a little bit about the methodology that we used in making these recommendations and determining our costs. You'll notice a number of attachments to this report. The first attachment is user data for the Open Gym program, and that provides you with some data for the past 16 months. Attachment number 2 is a market study, and that simply provides a little bit of background and information on what other cities charge for the same services that we're talking about this evening. The third attachment is a revised meeting room rental policy. And as I mentioned previously, this was revised simply to enable local businesses to rent the meeting rooms for an hourly fee. That's something that's currently prohibited in the existing policy. And the last attachment, attachment 4, is very significant. That's actually our fee study. And this is the chart. I have a lot of information packed in here. We're showing the cost of providing the services, the recommended fees, and then the cost recovery rates if the City Council accepts all the recommendations and the recommended fees of the Parks and Recreation Commission. This is to give you an idea of what we would actually be recovering. If the City Council accepts all of the fees, we're looking at approximately $25,000 in revenue from all of these programs about which we're speaking this evening. We also provide an attachment 4 in the fee study detailed explanations of the cost basis for the gym and the meeting rooms, and to make these facilities available to the public, we figured in the cost of personnel, upkeep of the facility, supplies, custodial services, utilities, pretty much all of the overhead that goes into making these available to the community. We've also provided a detailed explanation of the annual program costs for the open gym program and the adult basketball and volleyball programs. And we've also provided a detailed explanation of our revenue projections so you get a little idea where we came up with the numbers. And with that, I know it's a lot of information, but I'll turn it over to the City Council for your questions and your discussions.
So at this time, we'll go ahead and accept public testimony. We'll come back for comments and questions from the council after that item. So, any speakers?
We've had no requests.
All right. So I will close the public hearing and go to City Council comments and questions.
The overhead expenses, utilities, things of that nature, are those specific to the rooms that be rented, or are those in the overhead, is that cleaning the bathrooms and lights in the hallways and air conditioning the entire building, things of that nature?
We calculated the expense for individual rooms the best that we could using square footage. So for example, if we know our total cost for the facility for utilities, based on the square footage of the utility, we can figure out what it costs more or less for one meeting room. This is how we determined some of the costs for this meeting room and the meeting rooms over at the sports park. We also did figure in some of the overhead for the overall facility because, of course, we would never offer a meeting room for rent at the sports park without also ensuring that the facility is appropriately supervised, that we have the restrooms open, that they're clean, that we've taken the appropriate preparations and made the setup as requested for room setups and for breakdown and staff supervision. So it's a little of both that we figured into the overhead.
Okay, because yeah, in looking at some of the cost there, they seemed pretty high. So when I was looking at the $511 per day for the gym, what's driving that the most? Is it more staff time, or is it more? I'm sorry that should have asked these questions ahead of time. Tried to sit down with you, but
that's okay. Let's see. So the $500 a day average for the gymnasium, it includes utilities. So we looked at electricity, and we know. Well, I'll keep it simple. We looked at the electrical bill. We can figure out what that is. And extrapolate. We know what it is per year, per month, per week. We can get that pretty much down to a monthly average. We looked at the square footage of the recreation center, which is approximately 27,000 square feet. The gymnasium is approximately 10,500 square feet of that. It looks like the gymnasium is about 39% of the total square footage. So this is how for example, we calculated the cost of utilities for that part of the building. We came down to a monthly average. We worked that down to an average per day. So that's just the energy cost that I've been speaking about. We also included, we have Irvine, the water district expenses. We have gas expenses for the entire facility. The cost of field ambassadors, and then the cost for the administrative staff, which would be the supervisory staff, the field ambassadors, basically the staff that would be there supervising the facility if someone had a meeting room rental.
Okay. And looking at this in total, and then one of the attachments that has residents versus non-residents, it seems like there's clearly a lot of non-residents that are using the facility. You gave a good explanation of why that might be occurring. some of that could be commercial residents who are non-residents. Is that accurate?
That's correct, and also some of it's probably is commercial residents. We also think, in speaking with other cities that run gymnasiums, Laguna Hills, for example, they report the same statistics. They tend to have more non-residents than residents. Not every city operates a gymnasium, so if you're someone who enjoys pickup basketball or volleyball, you're usually going to go to the closest gymnasium that's the cleanest, the nicest, and the newest, particularly if you can find one that doesn't have a fee yet. And so we're anticipating that if the City Council approves a fee for non-residents, it's likely that we would see the non-resident usage decline a bit. We can't exactly say by how much.
Sure. I practically grew up in a basketball gym in San Diego, and it was a little different. San Diego's a big city, so most people who were participating were probably residents, but there was always a lot. San Diego's one of those towns that has basketball gymnasiums all over the city.
Sure.
I mean, in a city the size of Lake Forest, there'd probably be 3 in the way they were, and a lot of them were built cinder block. They didn't look nearly as nice, aren't as durable. I was in it. The one that I grew up in, I was in it last summer, and it probably hasn't been renovated since it was built in the mid-'60s. Right. So, we're very fortunate to have what we have. At the same time, I'm definitely concerned about fees for residents, and I know that our tax dollars are going towards a lot of things, and so that's definitely a concern of mine. So, as far as the per team costs are concerned for the adult basketball and volleyball leagues, do we anticipate that we're running the entire thing, and does like shirts come with this or whatever they might be, or is this just for usage of the court time?
That's a great question. So it's a city-run leagues. We're looking at offering 3 11-week sessions for each of the sports. So 3 11-week sessions for basketball, 3 for volleyball. We're anticipating 8 teams for each sport per session. It would come with T-shirts, and we also provide an official for the games.
Okay, and what are the size of the teams? I know volleyball's usually 6-player, but I'm guessing there's some extra rotating in. Same thing with basketball. Do we know what those numbers are yet? I'm trying to figure out what a cost per person is in these cases. So.
I'm looking at staff.
I'm asking a lot of minutia questions. I apologize, but.
Depending on if it's volleyball or basketball, we usually take up between 10 and 12 per team. So that way it spreads out. It's relatively inexpensive to be on one of these teams. I mean, you pay minimally for a full season of either sport.
Sure. Actually sounds cheaper than the
open gym.
Right?
Exactly.
You get a T-shirt, and maybe
your
cost is about $20 a person or something. Roughly in that range. You get a T-shirt, and I hope everybody doesn't get a trophy.
No.
Especially with adults. Only the winning team deserves a trophy.
No, exactly.
Thank you, Laura. Laura Lisak, Recreation Manager. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The portion about for-profit businesses being able to use the meeting rooms, I think that's a great addition, something that I wish we could have done from the beginning, but I know talking with some of the businesses in the area, they're definitely interested in using the facility, even using some of the sports fields and renting them out for corporate events and things of that nature. I know some of the multinational corporations that we have that are headquartered here have talked about even bringing in salespeople from Europe, and they drive by our sports park and they want to go play there, in the evenings and things of that nature, maybe even lunch hours and things like that. And so, I think that's a great addition, providing that, and then also making sure we include it in our policy about nonprofits using the facilities there. So, I think really my big problems are with respect to the open gym part. So, I'll let everyone else comment.
All right, I guess I'll go next. On that attachment that you mentioned, I think it's on page 99. No, sorry. It's on page 101.
Want to make sure I'm following along. Is that the fee study?
Yes.
Okay.
So there probably are good reasons, but Laguna Hills, on their open gym fees, the daily fee resident is none. However, if you wanted a year pass, you would pay money. So I don't know if there's like, the non-pass has a huge line, and to get in free, you have to show your driver's license or something, and maybe you just, skip all that. It's like the fast pass or something like that. But it seems kind of odd to have a no daily fee, right? But then an annual fee.
That's what they have. That's
Okay.
correct. Right.
So, is there that? I just wanted to verify that, in fact, was correct. Do you know? Are there a lot of wait times currently for like a pickup basketball game or to get on the court?
It really depends on the hour. The evenings tend to be a little bit busier, and there can be some rotating in and out. Other times, it's not as crowded, and everybody gets to play the whole game.
Okay.
So it just really depends.
And then I think on the staff report, you had the percentage of non-resident usage. It was 68% and 81% for basketball, volleyball, respectively. Do you know what percentage estimate you think maybe these employees working in Lake Forest may take up that?
It's difficult to say. If I had to estimate, I would guess maybe 10%.
Okay.
Maybe 10%. Open gym is it was difficult to really know. We know that we have residents and we know we have non-residents. We can start tracking commercial residents depending on our conversation this evening in the future. There are so many variables in how we could implement those fees. It's difficult to know exactly, for example, what the revenue would be. We don't know if people would prefer to pay daily fees versus the annual fees, and it will also depend on whether we start to count the commercial residents as residents. So but I would expect about a 10% decrease in the non-resident usage and at least a 10% increase in the resident usage.
Well, I just, I guess my comment would be that I think the resident fee, to me, I'm just not the most comfortable with that. Folks in town might be buying a house in some of the areas that have, paid these fees, right? And so, paid some of the fees to build the sports park in the first place, and now they're turning around and having to pay, fees on top of that again. So I guess I'd be open to waiving the fee for residents of Lake Forest, along with, even maybe adding the not-for-profit. If a not-for-profit organization is based in Lake Forest, maybe waiving the fee for those too, in the small and large meeting room, based on some kind of, we don't want them all packed, but I don't know if up to 10 or 20% capacity. I don't know. You guys can think about that, my colleagues and maybe staff. But I feel like folks, residents, nonprofits here in Lake Forest, whereas businesses, I think they're going to probably, they're not going to drive from like Anaheim to have a meeting in Lake Forest.
I wouldn't expect that.
So I just don't think that most of the businesses who want to have a room are going to be here in Lake Forest anyway. So.
I too gavelled over whether residents should be charged, but if we're paying for a yearly card for non-residents to come play open gym, or teams that are competitive teams coming to use our gym, would it be a problem to have people with no card coming in, or could we maybe lower the fees for residents to half what they are here now, and just lower the fees so that we still give them a card for like open play, so they have an open play residence card, much like we did with the skate park. There's a cost associated with giving out the cards for the skate park, and then in years past we didn't even have charges for the replacement cards. I think that them paying something to get the card, so now they have a card of identification as they come in. I think that would make staff time easier, and obviously staff time is city time. So would that be feasible?
Definitely, it would be feasible. It's certainly to the discretion of the city council. What we would do if you, for example, if you didn't want to have a fee at all for residents.
Or half of what it may be.
Sure. Well, we would issue a swipe card system exactly like you would see at the skate park. Someone would pay the one-time fee for the card. They would pay the fee if you approve one. If you don't approve one, then they would only pay the $10 for the card. And then that's basically their card for the entire year. And each time they come in to use the open gym program, they just swipe their card, and as long as they're a member in good standing, they can use the...
I'm just looking at the fact that if we take away the cards totally for residents, or the fee structure totally for the residents, then they have no card, and so we have to check ID all the time. And then you get the backup. So if they have the card, it's a swipe and you're in. Whereas if we have a backlog of people having to be checked by staff, and we have to have more counter workers, more of our ambassadors in checking cards at a rush hour when the gym's opening, or 5 o'clock when businesses get out and people are coming to play, then we're going to have a backlog at the counter.
That's correct. And another reason it's important that everyone have some kind of a swipe card is we need to know who's in there using the facility. If we have some kind of an incident where someone misbehaves and we need to take some disciplinary action, we have a way of knowing who that person is.
And you can
holding people accountable.
You can pull the card from them then, or just
disable the card. That's correct. Correct.
So I'm in favor, and I thank you for your guys' time and the work and the research you've done. I think competitively and comparatively, what's laid out here is fair rates, considering what the other cities are paying. And so I thank you for looking into that for us. But I think that the benefit that we had as a city to get the park, in large part paid for by the new housing that came in, I would like to maybe lower that to maybe half the threshold it is, and still charge them something, and get them a card, and then keep the rates as is.
Yeah, I'm going to support that idea. I think it's a good idea. I think your report was a good report, showed a lot of work and gave us a lot of information. Generally speaking, I'm in favor of user fees. I think that's a good thing to do. But on the other hand, I agree with both of my colleagues here that for our own residents, we have a healthy surplus, and as you said, they've already paid for it, many of them anyway, so I have no problem with a $10 a year, just, perfunctory charge for a card, and no dailies, just make all our residents get the $10. I also have no problem with the idea that the people who work here are kind of the same as our residents. They work here, their businesses, and why shouldn't we extend that to them too? The only question, and I have the other things of adding the business are great ideas. You guys did a lot of work and you did a good job. The only thing I noticed here was that it seemed on the non-resident fees, and from the information you gave us, generally speaking, we were lowballing compared to other cities. In my mind, when I saw that, I thought, here we have the prime piece of real estate in the county, and we're lowballing. Was there a rationale for that?
There was. So in the discussions with the Parks and Recreation Commission, they placed a very high value in having low user fees, specifically if we're talking about the open gym program. That's what they valued. I mean, even for the adult sports program, the team fees that they picked are in the bottom middle, sort of the range, right? And I think that they valued keeping the programs accessible and affordable to residents.
No, I'm not talking about the resident. I'm just talking about the non-resident.
I'm sorry.
Fees.
They wanted to come up with something that was reasonable, that they thought non-residents would still pay. And you're correct. It's still, compared to the other cities that have annual passes, it's still on the low side.
Yeah, and the nicest place. So
it is.
Nicest. I mean, that's great for people who don't live here.
Right.
I just thought that was overly generous. There was no reason for that extra generosity.
No. Just trying to keep things affordable.
I'm not crazy against it, but not crazy in favor.
There were some commissioners that regarded non-residents that come in to use this as potential residents, people that might move into the community, people that might enjoy our facilities and our programs. And I think that was one of the reasons, not only for the lower non-resident fees, but just for lower fees in general for the open gym program.
Maybe we could give them some literature on upcoming home sales in Lake Forest.
You could take a test in order to get a
I think the realtors would support that, too. On the daily use, to encourage the card, do you give a pass, or what do you do for a daily fee if someone wants to come in and play just for the afternoon?
That's more, so they don't really have a swipe card. They come in, if they're a resident, they have to demonstrate that they're a resident by showing us a Lake, identification with a Lake Forest address. Then they can pay the resident daily fee. If they don't have that, then they would generally be charged.
So that's a $2 charge.
That would be a $2 charge, and if they can't demonstrate that they're a resident of Lake Forest, then the daily fee would be the $5 charge.
So I'm open to keeping that, just to encourage them to get the swipe card, because that's actually lowers our employment time, someone at the counter, so if they can swipe it. So I'd encourage them to get the card.
The annual fee, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, by putting it low, and I agree, it's kind of a waste of time to the $2. So by having that low perfunctory fee, hopefully they figure the math, they get the card, and it saves time. And I don't think what are we going to do this for a year? So if it turns out we need to adjust something,
we can certainly do that.
We're not wedded into this for a long time. So.
Yeah, my only concern, I've been to the gym, I would say many times, and there are some times where it is really dead, and there's some times where it's decent. I haven't seen it just completely packed, and I'm just concerned about, I want people to use it. I want people to enjoy it. We've built it, and I think, I don't know, I just don't want to see a fee for residents that wipes out their use, that drastically reduces the use of the facility. So,
do you want to put like come back to us in 6 months if they think it's not working right, so we could adjust it, but otherwise go ahead with their recommendations?
Well, we're not there yet, so.
Okay.
We're not there yet.
I'm just saying, whatever we do, we're not locked in forever in the fee structures.
About 2 years ago, when the subject first came up, I am trying to talk less and say more, or say more and talk less. So bear with me. I'm trying to keep my comments short and yet get across what I'm trying to get across. It's always been a challenge for me. About 2 years ago, when this subject first came up, I opined that this park was built on taxpayers' dime, technically on developers' fee. But developers get those fees from the homeowner who purchases the home. Now, some would argue that, well, no, the developer sells it at market value. Yeah, that's the approach of a high school kid. The fact of the matter is market determines the price of a home. Yes, that's what was opined by a colleague of mine at the time. Everybody knows that. What is important is what determines the market. That's the underlying question in economics. That they don't teach you in high school. You got to go to college to understand that. What determines the market is a magnitude and many various elements. Perhaps the most important, the most substantive element is the cost. Simply means whatever the cost is, as a developer, as a businessman, I need to recoup that. So first and foremost, before I even get to making a profit, I need to recoup my cost. So when the city demands developer fees, especially in the thousands of dollars per unit, that becomes part of the cost of the house. That drives up the market. That's where the market comes in. And then the homeowner comes and buys at the market. So at the end of the day, the developer didn't pay for this park. Some of my colleagues want you to believe that. Yes, it was their money, but they recouped that money. The people who purchased the new homes actually are the ones who paid for this park. Of course, in return, what they got a good, well-run city. So they did not get the short end of the stick. No. They came into a city that was well-funded, clean, safe, one of the safest, one of the cleanest. But the fact remains that this park is taxpayer funded, no matter how you look at it. So 2 years ago, based on that notion, I wanted to not charge people who go there to use it, whether residents or non-residents, especially residents, not charging them. I lost 4-1 on that, as I often did in 2013, 2014, as I often do today, 3-2. I find this against public policy. If you want to charge, and the report is good, no doubt about it. It's just that I don't agree with the direction that my co-counsel is going. For instance, if you want to charge for a card, okay, charge for the replacement. Don't charge for the original card. Everybody should be able to get that first card free. Not $5, not $10, not $20. They get it for free. If they lose it, then charge them. As far as the park itself, it is underutilized. So if anything, we should lower fees. We should do whatever it takes to promote the use of this park. It is underutilized. It can do a lot more. It's not. Right there, we're losing money. How are we losing money? By not having a good return on our investment. And that return will be impeded even further by us imposing yet new higher fees. I can't support this, just like I didn't 2 years ago. Thank you. Unless my colleagues can request the staff to come back with a more public-friendly proposal. Thank you for listening.
So these fees aren't higher fees compared to what we discussed in 2014. We're not currently charging for individual use of any facilities at the sports park. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So what we approved in 2014 were basically team sports.
Correct. The creation of the sports user groups and then the team sports.
Correct.
The fees that they pay to use fields.
Which come with umpires and come with shirts and things of that nature, right? And there's the organization of it or something like that?
Usually the user groups actually organize all that. They provide their own officials. Right?
Okay. All right. So, but they're organized team usage of those. It's not individual use. So,
correct.
Like as an example, I'm sure that I haven't broken any policy when I've taken my son to play wiffle ball on one of the baseball fields on a Saturday. Now, as long as the gate's unlocked and we're not climbing over a fence and doing anything like that. Same thing with using the basketball gym right now. When we've gone in there, we're not paying a fee at all. And I hold the same position with respect to residential fees. I'm not supportive of a per day or even a yearly pass fee for residents. I think paying our tax dollars, we're a healthy city. We shouldn't be doing that. I think it should be very similar to what we're doing at the sports park, where you get a card for free. I think the first card you get for free, and then you have a $5 replacement. And that's just teaching all of us responsibility. The skate park is primarily a lot of younger individuals, and I am glad to know that my 11-year-old has to learn some responsibility in that way. Keep his card, learn how to keep it in a wallet and not lose it, and put it in the bottom of a box or whatever. So I'm supportive of that. The team fees make sense to me. Again, you're going to have officials there. You're going to have shirts that are involved, and an average resident won't be able to use the facility at that time because those courts will be only for people who are on teams. So, they probably should have some sort of fee. And I think these are very fair, as has been discussed. I mean, these are pretty low, and if we're talking about, I don't know, $15 to $20 is basically how this might come out to, maybe $30 at the most for a basketball team. When I was 9 years old, I played on my first organized basketball team, and I still have the Utah Jazz basketball jersey that I got, and I think it was $45 in, I won't even say what year that was, but I was 9 years old. So this is cheaper than it was way, way, way back when. And, there's some costs involved, and again, residents wouldn't be able to use it when the teams are monopolizing the court. So, I think that having a small fee actually makes sense there. The rest of this, I would argue that for-profit businesses using a public facility without a fee is crony capitalism. It's basically a corporate giveaway. That's how I would explain that. So if there isn't a fee, then they could say, well, I don't need to have a conference room because I'll just use the free one at the sports park, right? So I would say that that would be my argument to that. I mean, I think there should be some fee for businesses for sure. The nonprofits that was mentioned, I could be okay with that. Without a fee for nonprofits. And, again, when we're talking about the total amount here, we're having a fairly robust discussion about this, but, I think that when we're talking about taxpayer dollars, it's an important discussion, even though it's a low total dollar amount, $25,000 a year, or just the gym usage at $5,500. It's a very small amount in our overall budget, but I think that it's still a good discussion. So I think you know where I stand with all of that, but, I'll just let everyone else comment.
I just want to quickly comment. I guess in an effort to cut my comments short, I was not clear, or maybe I was. I was looking at it from the perspective of residents. I did not say anything as to the profit-oriented or non-profit businesses. I am fine with that. I was merely referring to homeowners, people who live here, or people in general, especially residents, those who live here. I was speaking on their behalf, not on behalf of the businesses, especially for-profit businesses. A for-profit business needs to pay its fair share. I think that goes without saying.
All right, everyone's, at least this side's looking at me. I'll go with the motion. I'll move staff recommendation with the following revisions: that the resident fee for daily is because we want them to use the cards. You said half, so I'll go with $1. 0 for the annual pass with no fee for the card. Just like the skate park. But what's the fee for the skate park replacement card? Is it $5?
I believe it's about $15 for the replacement.
It's 15.
Okay. Then same fee for the replacement card. And by the way, all those who are here from the Parks and Rec Commission, I saw like 2 or 3 of you. Thank you for all your work on this. I don't think you probably didn't feel comfortable like lowering fees from where I'm going. So good work. And the only proviso would be then on top of that Lake Forest nonprofit organizations would be 0.
For the meeting room rentals, just to clarify?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm open to amendments or discussion.
No, I second that. I think it's flawless, unless you and I are missing something, Andrew. I think it's a perfect motion.
Comments?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Sure.
So just the open gym part, that's what I wanted to understand.
Yep. Move staff recommendation with the following revisions. The table on page 96, resident fee for open gym daily program fee for $2 for residents goes to $1. The open gym yearly program fee is $0 with a free one-time swipe card with a $15 replacement card. And the Lake Forest nonprofit organization meeting room fee is $0.
Okay, so $1 per day charge, and then you get a free card and $15 for a replacement. Is that correct? Okay.
And no fee for the annual.
All right.
Like I said, I'm just trying to move things along.
And again, I second that. And for what it's worth, I think this is the first time in 1.5 years that I second Andrew's motion.
No, I don't think that's true.
You can probably count it on one hand if it's not the very first. Give or take, it's the first or second or whatnot. But
Well,
I really don't remember.
I'm glad you finally have seen the light, so.
Yes, I have seen the light. When Andrew doesn't act up, I do see the light.
I was going to vote against it because of my philosophical agreement with the use of fees, but with that introduction, I'm going to have to vote for it. I'd hate to see such a momentous occasion not have a 5-0 vote.
I think this is the first time that on something substantive we have a 5-0 vote.
I respectfully disagree with that, but for sake of, how do you feel? Feel good? All right. So we have a motion, a second. Cast our votes.
Why not? Let's just hold on 1 second on that, if I could.
All right.
What's the problem,
What's your
Dwight?
concern?
Just give me one. Yeah, what's your concern, Dwight?
It's just philosophical, that's all.
Yeah, but it's philosophical or otherwise. What is your concern? What is it?
I've stated it before, I just don't think...
Do me a
the
favor,
resident
say it
should
one more
pay the
time.
fee. I don't think the resident should have to pay the fee. I know we're only talking about $1, but I don't think they should have to pay the
Good.
fee.
Make a substitute motion. I'll make a substitute motion. If you
No, let Dwight do it.
Well, he says it, and it's okay.
It was his...
Everything Dwight said goes into my motion except what Andrew added, which is the dollar goes down to $0. Is that what you said, Dwight?
I think the dollars, or I think the per day charge should be $0.
Okay, good.
And I think that the card should be equal to the cost at the skate park. I don't think that it needs to be any higher.
Actually,
So
both of
instead
those...
$15 and...
It's not, it's the
It-
same.
I
It
was
is the
trying
same.
for it to be
Is
the
it
same.
5
Yeah,
or is it 15? Am I wrong?
15 is for the replacement.
Okay, I thought I saw it as
That's the
5.
same.
So then
That's
I just
the
have the $1. That's my
Just the one. Good,
philosophical
good.
difference.
Then we'll...
Is that a motion then? Dwight?
That's the motion, I second that.
That's my substitute motion.
If that's his substitute motion, I second that. Let's take a vote. We will have that 5-0 after all.
Do you need to cancel the thing? Restart. Madam City Clerk. Thank you.
Let's see.
That motion carries unanimously.
The suspense was killing me.
Andrew, can we take a quick one? Quick 10 minutes? Right?
5-minute break?
Sure.
All right. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Nice. Oh,
Okay, you're good?
Yeah.
You want a cookie? You want a cookie?
No, thank you. I thought it was going to go through the window.
No, not at all. Good discussion.
I almost fell through the window.
All right, let's bring it back together here.
Yeah, do it.
All right, before we do agenda item 10, one of my colleagues has, I'll just say, would anyone of my colleagues mind if we do a motion to reconsider number 4 and then 5 through 8 so the Mayor Pro Tem could vote on those? So I'll make a motion.
I second that.
Okay, we'll vote on it. Motion to reconsider. I don't think you can vote.
Councilmember Nick.
I'm sorry.
That motion carried with Mayor Pro Tem Voigt abstained.
All right, and then I'll entertain motions for the warrant register number 4.
Move it.
Second.
Cast your votes.
No, we did that. We just now we're voting on the original. So it's done.
Who we waiting
Do we have to make a motion? Motion for warrant registry item number 4?
It's been made and seconded.
Okay, then call for the vote.
No, that vote's been taken right on item 4.
We haven't got all 5 votes yet.
We did.
Okay. Hold on.
There we go.
Now, item 4 has passed unanimously.
All right.
And then I'll take a motion for the remainder 5 to 8.
I'll move it.
Second.
Cast your votes.
That motion passes unanimously.
All right, item number 10. Thank you, everyone.
Agenda item 10, residential parking management policy discussion, submitted by City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The Council directed that this item be on the agenda at your meeting of June 21st by minority consensus to agendize a general discussion regarding this, and also more specifically concerns that were raised by residents of the Bennett Ranch Homeowners Association. The staff has been reaching out to the Bennett Ranch neighborhood, and so on the basis of what we've done, we did not prepare anything because that's the general direction as it relates to this kind of agenda item being placed on the council's agenda. However, we'll be glad to update you as to what we may have been able to do, and then also answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, this is all action based on council's desire to discuss the item.
All right, so let's hear what people have to say.
Vincent Burke, followed by Derek Natvik.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Vincent Burke, Lake Forest. I direct your attention to some photographs that I distributed earlier. They are taken on 2 different nights, a week apart this month, and they address some streets that are going to be addressed tonight as they were a month ago. In regards to overflow parking, that is described on these streets as being loaded up with non-resident vehicles, usually between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. I was out there at midnight. Tell me how that looks overloaded. Now, it may be overloaded by some people's definitions, but not by mine, because I live in an area that is overloaded. perception versus reality. Now, maybe on the weekends, it's a little tighter. I'm sure it is. I've done my own personal surveys walking out there early morning, noontime, evenings, nighttime, and I've kept some statistics, some numbers looking at parking patterns out there on strings, on all these streets, the ones that have just recently been permitted and those that are proposed. Reality versus perception. One of the speakers last week mentioned that there are only about 10 houses on each street of the cul-de-sacs of Esrose, Mina Court, and 2nd Street, the cul-de-sac. There are actually 18, 18, and 17. Perception versus reality here. There is one house that I agree with a number of the statements that the person made. I have a copy of it here. The issue with limousines. There's one person over on Mina Court, have at least 6 vehicles. Of course, their overflow winds up typically out on Sherry or 2nd Street. So they get to have their cake and eat it too, because they have permits to park at least 4 of their vehicles out in their driveways and such. I've got a yellow light, so I really got to move fast here. I hope, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Nick, you could take a look at the previous study that was done to determine parking out on Springwater and the other 5 streets. I kind of question where the 46 cars, based on just Springwater alone, the overflow vehicles, 75%, are parked now. 14 might be out in the red zones, but that were opened up, but they're not showing up anywhere else that I can find. Lastly, we've got 2 issues. Boarding house situation and garage misuse, okay? You want to know why you have so much overflow parking? Because you have too many families living in these residences and garages that are not being used for parking. They are being used as dwellings, as recreation rooms, pool tables, you name it, it's in there. I've submitted photographs.
Thank you very much.
Derek Knappig, followed by Randy Johnson.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Derek Knappig. I'm a Portola Hills resident. Not quite the issues we're dealing with down in the more established communities. Been up there for about 20 years now. So I've seen a progression, which is expected. You know, more population, more parking. Our specific area, there's permit parking that happened a few years ago because of a condo community that's at the entrance of our community. Has overflow parking, was parking in front of their houses. Now the permits pushed it up to our area. So there's a little bit extra curb space here, so they shuttle people up. Like he said, it's usually after 10 at night, before, from 6 to whatever in the morning, chirping alarms, making noise. It's really unfortunate to live through, this transition. It's just something that, we have to get used to. But one thing I look at is like what you see with the solar panels. I mean, first of all, Lake Forest, it's a great city, I agree. This parking issues become kind of like what I'm hearing about the geese in some of these communities, and that's what it feels like in ours. And I guess, I just look at, I'm starting to say the solar panels that are being put up in like the schools and things. That's a great investment in the city's future. I mean, that's technology, it's shade, it's energy, and to try to think of ideas. I don't have any right now, I'm sorry, but to think of ideas like this that we can do with these parking situations for the future of the city. Obviously, making an investment is going to help improve things, and that's just, I'm here to listen on these things and try to help think of ideas too. But one point I wanted to make too is, and I don't know where I would find the laws, I guess, but the specific condo community we're dealing with, they actually have guest spaces, and these guest spaces are not being used. So all these people, by their own CC&Rs in their own complex, are getting run up to our neighborhood because they can't use their own guest spaces, and I don't know how that gets policed or if it can get policed. Anyway, so those are my issues. Thank you for listening.
I just have a quick question for
Yes.
you. Are you talking about right at the end of Lake Forest Drive and Bake? Is that generally the area you're talking? I'm just curious what area it was.
Yeah, Portola Hills, it's like Glen Ranch. It's where
Oh,
all
I'm
the-
sorry. I thought you said Foothill.
Yeah, it's where, and I'm concerned about
yeah.
the parking in all these new houses too, if they have enough.
Mayor, City Attorney, are they allowed to, at the condos, are they allowed to rent those extra space out, guest parking out, or do they have to, how, they're not allowed to send those for rent, are they?
Mr. Mayor, council members, the parameters governing parking in a private condo association, for example, would be governed really by two documents. One would be the CC&Rs, it's a private contract that we can't enforce. The other would be the approvals that were granted by the city when, or the county, as the case may be, when they were approved, and the conditions associated with those approvals. It's possible that those conditions address that and would prohibit that. If it's only in the CC&Rs, it becomes very difficult for the city to enforce that private contract.
Thank you.
So I think you're talking Saddleback Ranch and Malabar. That's the only one I know of.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy Johnson, followed by Ken Piotr.
Good evening again. Randy Johnson from Lake Forest. You know, I didn't really intend to talk on this subject, but it's kind of an interesting topic, and we're not having this problem in my neighborhood, that's for sure. But my philosophy is that if a person owns a house or they're living in a house, that they should be able to do what they want to with their garage up to, up to reason, I guess. And, as far as putting a bedroom in there, or piling it high with junk, that type of thing. But the funny thing is, I walk through the neighborhood and I see people just big as life with their garage wide open. They've got a bedroom in there, okay, where they've got a whole bunch of junk, from ground to ceiling, packed with stuff, okay, and nobody ever does a thing. So my question, are these laws being enforced? I don't think so. I don't think the laws are being enforced, because there's got to be some busybodies in the neighborhood calling these people in. There have to be. And so, but my philosophy is this: they can do what they want with their garage, but at the same time, if they said, well, we want permits on these public streets where we can park exclusively, I'd say, no way. Not when you have all this stuff in your garage. You use your garage for your cars, okay? That's a public street, and that's paid for with public tax dollars. Everybody has access to that parking. But again, if they're going to use their garage for other purposes other than cars, don't ask for permits. That's a no-no. And so that's where I would be very, very hesitant, or I would actually step in and say, hey, you're not going to take this space out here. Somebody else wants to use it, they're paying taxes too. They have just as much entitlement to that space as you do. Okay, I mean, that's my philosophy, and live and let live, but don't, don't hog parking spaces when you're using garage for other purposes. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Piotr, followed by Sean Fallon.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Ken Piotr, and I live on Blue Ridge Road, basically Merlin's and Ridge Route. I wrote this letter, actually it was in February of 2015, to the city attorney. And it's a series of questions of what the situation was on Blue Ridge on February 5th, 2015. My neighbors and I looked outside and we had 31 cars on the street. Excuse me, we had 31 minus 7 cars on the street. The other 7 were in driveways, of which they belong to 3 houses. We, and I in particular, we took photographs, and I have all that, and people have done that, and we've submitted it. I've talked to one of your council members. I've talked to the HOA. The city attorney did take time out to answer these questions. We have what the problem is, what we did, 7 calls to the police. If you got better things to do than look at a bunch of parked cars. I don't deny that. But this is the situation. We went through what our observations are. And we came up after 30 days of photographs twice a day. There's about 4 things that are going on, and what appears to me is you're trying to use a law of 72-hour parking, which basically would concern maybe 1 or 2 cars, but what we're talking about here is overflow parking. You have way too many cars, and there are ways of getting around this 72-hour parking limit, and I've got it documented here. Multiple cars, 6 of the cars of the 31 were used by 3 people. They just rotate cars. So I can sit there all day, and of these 3 people, I'll never be able to make a call to this gentleman on a car that's been parked 3 days because they rotate the cars. The other ploy was to have one person work nights and the other one work days. It's like kind of being on a submarine. You do your duty and the other guy sleeps, and then you flip-flop and you sleep in the same bed. So we have that going on. There is another one, I can't remember all of them, but I think one of them was in terms of HOA, in terms of public street. For whatever reason, people know the rules and how to break them. You will not see one of these cars parked on the HOA private street, but you'll see them on the public street, which tells me that these people know what they're doing.
Sorry, time's up, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Sean Fallon.
Good evening.
Welcome.
I've been living in Bennett Ranch, and I want to address the parking issue. I've been in real estate for about 30 years. I've been doing property management since I was a teeny kid. My dad owned many properties. And I find that it seems to be a issue of poor management on these properties. Absentee property management, off-site property management, to where you got these property managers that are not controlling the occupancy in these units. There's so much abundance of parking issues in all the apartment areas, whether you address the Bennett Ranch or if you go over towards the railroad tracks, to where I would go to work and the parking lot would be full at the CVS from all the parking from the apartments across the street. And then all the alleys would be crammed and all the street would be full. So you have this issue of there's no management of these units. When we do property management, we maintain 3 inspections per year. We go in and change the smoke detector batteries twice a year, and we also do a 1-year inspection on the property. That gives us an insight into the property as to how many people are actually living in that property. And that seems to not be happening in these units. It's just out of control. You got 2 lanes of parking. I think there's been many studies by the city of Anaheim to where it presents an alley effect. And if you could talk to the sheriff here about the impact of alleys, you can see it there tonight if you drive down that street. There's pallets in the street. There's broken glass. There's been tires slashed. You've had a stabbing there. You have drug dealing. That is very consistent with an alley. And I know the city of LA has addressed this, and that's their big focus right now is alley prevention. Now the city of Anaheim has done a lot of research on this. They've eliminated street parking altogether in some of their neighborhoods. It brought the property management companies to the table. I don't see any property management people here trying to address this problem. It's a one-way street. I think this needs to be addressed, and I think the city needs to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
There have been no further requests.
All right, we'll bring it back to the council.
I think I'll go first since I'm the one who raised the issue. And I appreciate everybody who spoke. And I originally started to think about this. Actually, I've been thinking about this issue for years when it's come up before us. And there was recently a Attorney General opinion that came down. It's not law, but it's an Attorney General opinion, which brings into question possibly the way we've been doing permit parking, but I'm always talking about how we shouldn't be looking at small little things. We need to be looking globally, and that got me more interested in the issue of spillover parking in general, or overflow parking. It's more commonly called spillover parking. And so I began looking at this, and then a bunch of people on Lake Forest Town Square started chipping in, and so I developed ultimately this report that my colleagues have in front of us, and it identifies 17 issues that come to bear on this problem of spillover parking, 18 issues actually, and of which the permit parking, which is one of the solutions to some of these problems, has invariably caused spillover problems. In other words, the overflow problem that we've identified causes spillover problems. I had the city produce a map for me of where we had done the projects, and in at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and I believe it's 5 of the last 6 permits that we issued, no sooner had we issued a permit than an adjacent neighborhood got impacted by the constriction there. So in essence, we created spillover problems as a result of our permit thing. I'm just going to go very briefly through my report, which, by the way, I only give a B. I don't think it's the best report I ever did, just critiquing my own work. Still, it's not so bad. In one of the problems, garages, and we talked about garages. Garages are being used for storage, for additional living areas. There are some people who actually rent out their garages, and people are separately living in the garages. There's unregistered vehicles stored in driveways, and there are simply homes with too much stuff. The density problem, those are 5 problems. We have density problems. There are many people who own an extra car. There are people who rent out rooms to get the additional income. Families move in together. It's not at all uncommon for 2 and 3 families to be living together, or for adult kids no longer living. And then we have the presence of sober living homes, which I think was one of the problems, and they bring together 6 adults, and they all have cars and visitors. So not only are the garages not being used, but the density is increasing. We have the street parking problem, where the regulations, and this was brought up by, I think Sean Vallon brought this up, the regulations inside the HOA complexes are either bad or not being enforced appropriately. Another problem we have with street parking that we have to live with is cars are longer than ever, and they're getting longer and longer. Another problem we have is a city problem. The city has parks, and we don't have parking lots for those parks. So in fact, some of the problems of spillover parking is because people who'd like to visit city parks have no place to park except on city streets. We have that problem with schools that want to have events. You've had this, where you live. And there's just not enough parking, so the parking from the events spill over into the areas. Another problem we have is home businesses. More and more people are having home businesses, and they are seeing people in their homes, so that's taking up the street spaces that normally wouldn't be taken up. 15th problem, Airbnb. Airbnb is not a big problem in this city yet, but Airbnb, typically an Airbnb, because I have one on my block, Airbnb, the garage is kept for the owner, and they kind of keep that as storage. So the Airbnb visitors, who almost always have SUVs and often multiple cars, they're out in the driveways and the streets. And then there's the problems of, for example, the city, when we approve the tandem garages, nobody uses tandem garage. You call that 2 spaces, but you've only got, the studies I saw, 1.3 spaces out of that. And then we, after approving the tandem garages, we even narrowed the size of the tandem garages, which made them almost impossible. Those people have to go out on the streets. Finally, there's the increased parking areas for new construction. The way the new places are done to make them look pretty doesn't make a lot of parking spaces available on the streets, forcing people out. The biggest problem in all of this, number 18, of course, is public transportation. Public transportation sucks. It's even worse now because about 3 months ago, just not so long ago, they decreased that bus line that used to go down Muirlands and somewhere else. So we have even less public transportation than we did before. And of course, we don't really do a lot of work with bikes and things like that. So that's a boatload of problems. All of that goes into the problem of the spillover. And about half of those problems I mentioned, those 18 problems, a little bit more than half of them, are something we can't do anything about. Public transport, what are we going to do about long cars? There's not much we can do. People and their stuff, half those problems, there's really nothing at all. We're slaves to those like everybody else is. And that's why this problem of spillover parking is a problem. Someone mentioned Anaheim. It's a problem. The cities all over the place are dealing with it. And I don't believe we're going to solve any of these things tonight. But what I would like to do, having identified these, and I'm sure there are more than these, is I'd like to suggest that we re-empanel the traffic advisory group. Instead of starting a new group just on parking, we had those people, they conscientious, they put their time in, they worked pretty well together. I'd like to see if we couldn't re-empanel them and get them with the help of the city, because half these things we can do something about, half we can't. And I'm sure, like I said, I give my report only a B. I'm sure there are probably 5 or 6 more variables that aren't in here, maybe even more. And throw that to the group, have them come back, look at what our regulations are, come up with suggestions for how we could deal with it, because we're on a dead end. If we just keep permit parking, that's a dead end. We've squeezed it as much as we can. 5 of the last squeezes we did, just other areas, at least 2 of them have come back to us complaining about we need to do something a little more comprehensive and a little more proactive. So what I'd like to come out of this meeting is the recommendation, re-empaneling that group, or certainly re-inviting them, giving them maybe a 3-month time frame to go over these issues, have the staff do a much better job than I did talking about them, and then come back to us with specific ideas of how we could address whatever we can address with whatever changes we could do.
First of all, speaking to the general issue, I think having city staff and a group take a look at this makes sense. I think it probably makes more sense for the Planning Commission to do it. That would be my preference. They're a commission that's in place, and I think that they could probably work it into their agenda. So that would be my first thought. I know that some of the commissioners, Commissioner Verplank's been around for a long time. Commissioner Dale Maida, I think, probably has a little bit of experience with this, and so I think that might make the most sense. And I'm not going to disagree with anything that you said. Clearly there's a lot of issues that are pulling that direction. There could be some that are pulling the opposite direction. We're going to see a lot of changes with technology. I think one of the commenters from Portola Hills mentioned that we might be caught in the middle of all of this, right? So there's a lot changing right now. Who knows how many people are going to be using the sharing economy and how that all works. How will that be impacting younger people? And that's something that we have to be cognizant of all the time. I know that as we're going through our general plan update, those might be some issues that are already being considered for discussion. Those are going to be really good things for us to discuss, because I know that there are some portions of California that are actually thinking that they might see more use of the sharing economy, where it might even take parking lots and repurposing them to something else, because they're thinking they might not need that. Whereas here we're saying, hey, in certain parts of town we definitely need more parking. There's no question about that. So just all things that we definitely want to keep our finger on the pulse of. more specifically to this issue and where we might be able to find some ways of alleviating some of the problems that residents are experiencing, I think, is looking at underutilized assets. And I know that we talked about this, it's been months, might have even been a year ago, I can't recall, but we talked about Cherry Street next to the driving range. And right now that basically doesn't allow overnight parking. I think that from my perspective, I'd like to see us work with both the residents of the areas around Bennett Ranch and the condo, or I think they're all condos, but they might be some apartments there, work with all of those groups as well as the businesses there, because I wouldn't want to see us put a bunch of residential traffic there and then people can't park to go to, you know, some of the businesses in that area, the baseball academy or you know, some of the light industrial businesses in that area. So if we could work together on that, that would be my preference, to try to open some of that space up, because right now it's underutilized. And definitely in the evenings it might make more sense to have no residential parking there from 8 to 5 so that the businesses could use it, and then, you know, residents could park there overnight. So there might be some synergies that could be developed there, and that would be my hope. That solutions like that don't exist in every community. You know, one of the challenges that we saw with Saddleback Ranch Road was that some of the overflow parking that was occurring on that road was being taken away by the design, and so, you know, I think some of that discussion ended up being very healthy and putting some of that parking back in the area so that it didn't cause some of the problems that we're talking about tonight. So did it solve all of it? You know, absolutely not. So it's that's kind of like my general comments as well as my specific, and that's the direction that I would hope that we would head. So I'm supportive of definitely having a group doing it. I think personally the Planning Commission makes the most sense, and then more specifically with this problem with Bennett Ranch, if we can add another 15, 20, 25 car spaces, you know, what does that do to this overall situation? Does it fix it completely? Absolutely not. But does it make it a little bit more livable? I think so.
First of all, I want to thank you all for coming and speaking to us tonight on this. It is something that it's hard for the homeowners association. It's hard for us as cities to really wrangle with this, because the fact is that in the definition of family, it can be multi-adults living together in one house, which would actually include more cars. And I think it's just a sign of the times and some of the things we're dealing with. But what it pertains to in some of these cases is not being able to use your parking spot in front of your own house. And I think that when it becomes a chronic problem like that, I think it's something that we have to look at and try to find a solution to. So I support bringing it back and allowing our Planning Commission also to look at it. I think that they're a way that we can actually have some further insight onto this and allow the public to come and speak to them and allow them to rationalize and look through this, and then talk to staff and figure out where we can actually go with this, because it is something that's hard to deal with, because there are times where you put permanent parking into one area and that the actual problem was that we're not maintaining who's living where and how many rooms are actually being utilized, what garages are being utilized as people living space. And I think that's something that we have to look at as a what is the source problem, instead of just spilling it over from one community to the next. And so I think that would be a good thing for us to allow the Planning Commission to look at and bring it back to us, and then allow us to take further action. See what are the surrounding communities doing with some of these same problems? What is Los Angeles doing? What's Tustin doing? And some of these other cities, City of Irvine.
Yeah, you know, just to, I did some research, much too little, but I looked at about 15 other cities, and nobody has a really good handle on this. I don't know if Gail or Tom, if you guys are aware of it, but I didn't see any. I saw everybody struggling with it. And what was interesting is most of the cities struggling with it are struggling with it primarily as the commercial spillover, the business spillover into residential. We're one of the few communities, at least that I saw, that's, looking at the residential spillover. The residential spillovers kind of, at least in the 15 things I looked at, was more of a minor issue. Their major issues were the business spillovers, but it's a completely different ball of wax. But that's what I'm hoping, Carlo and the staff who would be in touch with the other cities could get a much better handle. I honestly couldn't find very much being done in this area.
All right, sounds like there's consensus. I was just going to say that, many parts of Lake Forest we inherited from the county, and the county had lower standards, and so we've kind of inherited the issues from the county developed land. And I also appreciate one of the last speakers. Maybe I would definitely recommend us reaching out to the management companies in the higher density areas and having conversations with them.
Just real quick, I know that the recommended action here was exercise discretion regarding a future agendized item. So what leeway do we have to push something down to the Planning Commission, or do we need to agendize this for another future discussion to make those formal decisions?
Mr. Mayor, council members, the council's newly adopted council consensus policy, as you know, requires 2 votes to agendize as we have tonight, which leads to a future agenda item. I think pushing for an item on the Planning Commission's agenda is the same, if not less, than having it on your future agenda. So I think that would be fine and within the intent, I believe, of the council's policy.
Okay, so with that, I'll make the motion that we push to the Planning Commission to have a robust discussion.
And I'll second that.
On parking issues in general, and that this might need to be a multi-meeting kind of discussion, similar to the suggestion that Dr. Gardner made about forming a panel. It's probably not a one night, one report kind of thing, but something that is going to require some dialogue and discussion. So that would be my motion. And then I think beyond that, just for what my 1 out of 5 comments are worth, just general direction on continuing, I should say, to work with the Bennett Ranch community, as well as the other condo and or apartment complexes there, about potential usage of Cherry. I know we've discussed that at previous council meetings, so that's not anything new, but just want to stress and emphasize my desire that we move forward with that and have a discussion with businesses as well, and the impact that might have on them.
And I'll second that again. Vincent, I thank you for the pictures, and I'm glad that you're out there patrolling our nights at 12 a.m. in the morning. Makes me feel better that you're out there backing up our law enforcement.
I just want to quickly say thank you to all of you who came and spoke on this issue. I'm glad that the 5 of us are working on this together, hand in hand. It seems like we're all on board. It's a matter of reaching out to the associations just to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. And everything you folks said, I won't take your time by repeating everything you said. You said it beautifully. Thank you again for your involvement, for guiding us so we can do our job. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I would have preferred the Traffic Advisory Committee, but since we gave the planning people an extra night off, so we can fill them with that. And I want to also reinforce your idea. I think that's important. I'm worried about the global thing, but we mustn't stop the search for unique situations, solving those individual ones. So that's just as important that we continue doing that, even while we're looking at the more global recommend. So thank you for adding that.
With that, let's cast our votes. We have a motion and a second.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, the system reset. Could you vote one more time? That motion carries unanimously.
Which leads us to the city manager's report.
Nothing further this evening, Mr. Mayor.
And the city attorney's report. No, I guess he's not on there. So city council comments.
Just going back to, thank you everybody for staying. Although it's not so late, usually I say this about 11 o'clock at night, and I get you the special cookies. 9 o'clock, I'm not sure about the special cookies. But thank you for staying with us. And if I go back to the original comments made by Randy Johnson, I guess you were worried that we didn't do enough with OCAC. We recognized the fact that they made errors, and I know Deborah followed up almost immediately and talked to them about the errors. Were they going to correct it, or they're just going to, we're going to spend a year, or were they going to do something immediately about that, or?
They said they were going to take it under advisement and discuss it among the staff. I can follow up to see if they intend to repost. I didn't specifically ask them to make any correction to their reports.
Yeah, and I don't think we gave you that instruction. It was certainly in the back of my mind that they would correct it, not just for us, but for everybody. So, and we probably can't make a motion on that now. So in any event, if you report back to us before the next meeting, and I'd appreciate that. Otherwise, I have some good news for the animal-friendly people. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Dave Belmer being appointed to the new Animal Commission, or whatever it's called?
Dave Belmer was voted the chair of the city manager's animal care committee.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's really good news. So that's excellent news. Those of you, Dave Belmer used to be the deputy city manager here, and despite all my begging, he left us anyway. So this gets us a chance to work with him again. That's really good news. That's it for me.
I just want to quickly say thank you all for your involvement, for being here, for guiding us, so that we can, like I said a moment ago, so that we can do a better job for you than we would have. Good night, everyone. The staff, I thank you all. My colleagues to my left, God bless you. God bless America.
Last Friday, I had the opportunity to go visit one of our former CDBG recipients who didn't receive anything this year. It was a domestic violence group, Human Options, who came in, and there just weren't enough Lake Forest residents that they were serving. So they didn't receive funding this year, but I encouraged them and told them that I would personally be very supportive of what they're doing. So had a great tour. Understand that both themselves and the Camino Health Clinic and a few others are moving to the old Orange County Register building right off of Muirlands there across from the mobile home park. And so first of all, I told them that I want to try to help in any way that I can with trying to make sure that they have adequate bus service to those locations with OCTA. So anything that we can do from a staff perspective. Human Options isn't a recipient anymore, but some of the other organizations are. I also was wondering, and I apologize that I didn't get a chance to take a look, but I was wondering if we have any links on our website at all to those recipients that are receiving CDBG funds. So if you could look into that, and if not, I definitely want to try to encourage that so that residents who are in need of those services have a way to get to them through our website. The other issue that I just wanted to bring up tonight, and I'm going to ask for some council consensus here. I'm going to try to hold it together because it's been fairly rough as a nation the last few weeks. And I was in Dallas a couple years ago, got a chance to spend some time with the mayor. Great guy. He's on the complete opposite end of the political spectrum that I am, but the challenge that he's had and his community's had over the last few days, the last number of days, I just can't imagine. Feel so thankful to live in the community that we do with the residents that we have. And right after that, I had a thought about something that I wanted to do here in town. And I looked around, and we already had something that kind of addressed that. And then Baton Rouge hit us, right? And I woke up pretty heartbroken that morning, and it's occupied a lot of my thoughts over the last few days. And in Orange County, I think we lost an officer in like the late 1950s in the line of duty, and then we didn't lose an officer for a long, long time. And I moved into Lake Forest in early 1999, and I lived at the Timbers the first couple of years, right there at Ridge Route and Rockfield. My wife and I's first apartment. And we got married April 19th. And I don't think I'll ever forget hearing sirens on June 12th, just not 3 months later, wondering what the heck was going on. And that was the night that another officer fell in line of duty. It's Brad Riches. Sorry. And this community, rallied behind our sheriff's department, rallied behind each other, candlelight vigils. Some of our council members at the time worked on memorials, remembrances, things of that nature. And when 2001 hit, I was at a council meeting, it's either late 2001 or early 2002, and former Mayor Dixon brought up renaming Heroes Park after fallen firefighters and fallen police officers. And it's a great general remembrance. But after what we've experienced as a nation the last couple weeks here, I just want to make sure that my kids don't grow up forgetting that there was somebody like Officer Riches who literally gave his life for this community. And so we have a council policy that says that we're not going to name anything after any person. I apologize if you give me just a little bit longer here.
You can have my time.
We have a council policy that says that we're not going to name any park or any anything in town, any room after an individual. And the last people anything should ever be named after are people who sit up here. We don't deserve any of that. But people like Officer Riches and Officer Robbins, who've both given their life for this community, I think deserve some recognition. So I'd like to ask for a council consensus that we just revisit that policy.
Second.
And if we could get a third one so we can have...
Yeah, well, you have it.
And
I think you have unanimous consensus.
Well, and with that, I apologize for my emotion, but it's been rough. And as a nation, I feel like we're starting to pull apart, and we need to find a way to get back together. And even as a council, at times we might feel that way, but you look at what happened tonight, and we have a lot of robust discussion. For the most part, we ended up, I think, coming out with 5-0 votes on everything. And we're not going to always agree all the time, but we need to respect one another. And I can't say that I'm perfect, but I'm going to do my best. And I just hope that we can continue to encourage people in the community to do their best. And when we're out there, even our officers, they're not perfect either. Nobody likes getting a speeding ticket or a parking ticket or anything like that. But these guys, they never know what's going to happen when they walk up on a car. They have absolutely no clue. And so, when you see them around town, just let them know how much you appreciate what they do, because these are the people who are potentially literally going to take a bullet for us.
They will walk towards someone shooting and try to keep us away. So, I hope that you all will just let our officers know how much you appreciate them when you see them around town. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It was awesome.
I actually had the privilege of knowing Brad Ritchie's. He lived. He had a woodworking shop that he did. After work, he'd have people come over and he'd help them make cigar boxes or tables. And I had the privilege of living across the street from a longtime deputy sheriff here in Orange County that was actually his partner for many years, Dave Hartman. And I think that what's going on in the nation and this year's record loss of life for law enforcement means that we need to look at and appreciate the guys that are out there at night when we lay our heads down. They're out there putting their lives on the line, and so it's a thin blue line between life and death for them. And I've been to the law enforcement memorial. We have one here in Tustin, and I invite you guys all to stop by there and see that and see the history of and the loss of life that we've had, but the way that we recognize that. And I think that we do owe them so much. And the community that we do have, we live in a community that I feel is a safe community, and I believe that we're blessed to have the Orange County Sheriff Department patrolling our streets. And so I wholeheartedly, so thank you, Councilman Roberts, for bringing that forth. 31 law enforcement lives have been lost to this date. Unfortunately, we lost another one today in Kansas, and so thank you guys for thank you, Lieutenant Valentine, and I really do appreciate them, and I think we all need to stand behind the badge and honor those that are out there serving us. I have nothing further.
No, I just can't follow those two guys. I just echo the same sentiments. And I really think our country needs peace and not discord. And wherever I can encourage that, I really want to do that. So the other thing I was just going to say is thank you, Lieutenant Valentine. I don't know if I've mentioned it. I went on a ride-along about a month ago, and Officer Billy, was a great experience. And I just really encourage folks to I think citizens can do that too, right? So that might just be one thing that we can do to support them, in addition to everything else that everyone else has said, and kind of walk in their shoes for 4 or 5 hours. So somber times, and I just hope we can keep it together. I know we can. Thank you, and we need to adjourn to closed session. So have a great evening. Good night.